All right, check. Check's good. This is the 40 Ounce Hemlock podcast. This is episode 45. Pardon my enthusiasm. It is Monday, May 18th, and that's irrelevant, but it seems like a good way to start the show. Because I'm not exactly sure how to start the show. That's probably the case on other occasions. I don't know if it's the case to this degree, or if it's ever been the case to this degree. It's 5 a.m. I got up today at 3 a.m, as per usual. And I was immediately faced with a decision that is becoming increasingly unbearable to me. You know, in addition to the decision whether to just actually get off the couch and wake up or not. More on the couch in a minute. The decision is this. What do I do with my time? What do I do with these 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours? You know, it looks like 4 hours between, 3 and 7 when the kids start waking up. It's not really 4 hours because, by the time you've hard-boiled some eggs and made a pot of coffee and done the dishes from the dinner last night and tried to do it, and you got to do it slower because you got to do it quietly so you don't wake anybody else up. And then, you get changed for your run that's coming at 7:30, or 7 or whatever. And then you got to leave some time at the tail end of the whole, putatively 4-hour block for stretching before you, all this stuff turns out to be about like 2 hours, 2.5, What do I do with my time? This is a question that is increasingly driving me, I think, pretty crazy. This is going to be a little bit incriminating of me. Self-incriminating, I should say. It's a question that is driving me increasingly crazy as I reach what, God willing, is the midpoint of my life. I'd love to have another 40 years. I'd love to have another 50. I'd love to have another 60. I have a son who struggles to formulate words because of the damage to his muscles in his chest done at birth, and struggles to keep his head upright because of the damage to his muscles in his neck done at birth. And who, by all accounts, except for dads, because God damn it, we're going to do it, struggles to stand unsupported. Well, not struggles. He can't stand unsupported. The prevailing wisdom is that he won't walk, let alone, or I should say won't stand, let alone walk. But don't ask me about that because that's not, I don't accept that. And I wasn't supposed to be the guy that was saddled with this kind of challenge, because I've created for myself all sorts of my own challenges in my life. And I'm trying to sort through those, and now I have this son. I have 3 wonderful girls and a son. And I have this son that I have to leave alone in the world someday. Now, before you nod your head, And you think to yourself, yes, the pangs of a parent's heart as they think about how do they, it's like Moses or whoever, like, I go to be with my fathers, No. You don't know this pain. All right. Maybe a select one or two, I'm not trying to have a pissing contest with you. I'm just speaking the truth. I don't really have any patience or time anymore for parents who talk about and gripe about and complain about, the exhaustions or the calumnies and the pains and the trials and the tribulations of parenting. I don't have any patience for you. Because for 99% of you, your kids are going to grow. They're going to figure things out for the most part. And they can walk and talk. Which means someday they'll work. They'll provide for themselves. And they'll have friendships that are based in conversation. Because the muscles in their chest were not damaged at birth. And so they can formulate words. And so someone will be their friend. And they won't be alone. Because friends talk. And that's how friendships are formed. And so you're going to die someday, parents. And I'm God, I gotta not be too cynical here. I'm sorry. Your kids are gonna be okay. It's the circle, the cycle of life. They're gonna be okay. I was talking to one person very dear to me, very, very recently. And from time to time with people, I broach or I gesture or I try to in some way hint at what I'm struggling with. I try. And then I hope that someone will take up the hint and go, oh shit, oh God, someone do something. And they don't get it. Talked to somebody very dear to me recently who said, hey, I have parents who are very near the end of their life. Don't tell me I don't know about pain. I thought, oh God, how do I respond to this person in a loving way? In a way that is not selfish in my pain. I don't know. I wake up in the morning and I hear the sand, in the hourglass. I hear the clock ticking on my life. I might have been a different 40-year-old man than I am now. I might have had 100,000 in the bank or 200,000 in the bank. I might have had a house. I might have made different decisions. I might have had a different upbringing. I might have had a different dad. I might have had, I might have grabbed myself by the shirt collar earlier on in the process, right? I didn't. I'm not. I don't. I haven't. And so I wake up at 3 a.m. with the intent to beat this thing that is haunting me by pure grit. But the devil's a clever spirit. And he's clever. Because I'm incapacitated. Even at this level of determination. And I've been at this for a few years, more than a few years, man, on and off. But just grinding, as you have more kids, you got to find hours where your attention doesn't need to be on them. So just grinding, early mornings, grinding, trying to learn some skill, trying to acquire some career, trying to be what I know I'm never going to be. And now the clock's ticking. I see my son, and the clock's ticking because my son, listen, and God forbid he ever hears this. I pray if he does, he will chalk this up to a moment of weakness on his father's part, because in every other circumstance, I got to be positive for him. And I hate positive people. And life is not positive. Life is suffering. I pray he never hears this and goes, oh, wait, so Dad was less confident than he made pretense of being? So Dad didn't have the faith that he made pretense of having? So Dad didn't have the hope that he told me he had? So Dad didn't have the gumption and the grit? And he would. I pray he never hears this. But what are you going to do? I'm at a point in my life where I'm going to break. Because I think whereas for a normal person, there are joys intermixed amid the pain and moments of respite, and there's a normal, course of life that, although it does have its pain points, it does follow a standard, like I said, this person, someday I'm going to lose my parents and I'm going to be in pain too, but I will lose my parents at the end of a long and fruitful life for them. And I thank God for that. But when I go, I'm going to leave a son in the world who is utterly, at this stage, utterly unable to provide and care for himself. And I have nothing to leave him to help him. So I wake up at 3 a.m. and say my prayers to the extent that I can say them through tears. And I hope that there'll be some breakthrough if I try harder and harder and harder. But this question, what to work on, haunts me, because it's like if you don't have it figured out at this point. I got all these things I'm trying to do, none of which I'm very good at. And it would be one thing if I was just trying to find my own way, build my own house, my own life, rectify my own situation. One lifetime's worth of debt. But I'm a middle-aged man. Drowning in school loan debt that I'll never pay off. With a son who, I have to say this genteelly for myself, or else I won't make it through the end of this recording. With a son who will be limited. And I hope you know what is being hidden behind that word limited. Don't take for granted what a few basic physical abilities allow you to do for yourself in this world, and without them, how you would suffer. And so I'm incapable as a person of experiencing joy. I fake it because I know there's moments where you're supposed to be supposed to have it. I fake it. I don't have it. I don't have it because at every moment I'm counting the seconds until this calamity. Which is me leaving my son with nothing. So I wake up at 3 a.m. and I go, okay, should I, study, or should I work out, or should I, do a podcast, or should, it's like what, and I'm lost. A few years ago, I taught myself programming. I could sort of fumble my way through it, but wasn't formally, educated in it, and I get stumped real easy. And finally, after about 4 years of working on it, landed a job last year. Finally landed that programming job. I'm the self-taught programmer. Did it, for one brief moment in my life. It looked like there was hope. Coming home from work one Friday, driving down highway or County Road Q, tears streaming down my cheeks because it's Friday and I get to play with my kids all weekend on the floor in the living room. When your son can't walk, you do a lot of playing on the floor. All right. So excited to play with my kids on the floor, on the carpeting in the living room. I came home, walked up the stairs, opened the door, and all that I saw was carpet. Because everything and everybody was gone. Fell apart. Life's been pretty much a blur since that time. Especially the immediate aftermath. Really not sure what happened there for a minute. Still not quite sure what's going on, but I've got my bearings a little bit. But crumbled for loss of my couldn't handle being without my kids, and I lost my job. Just couldn't function, couldn't focus, couldn't function, couldn't think. I gotta have my kids. And opted for voluntary homelessness at that point because the domestic situation that materialized at that moment, I was hoping and praying there was some way to roll back. So I thought, well, if I saddle myself with another lease, then, suppose it does roll back, then we got 2 leases, and I can't even afford my life as it is. So I opted for homelessness, and I, just lived in a car and at the office until I lost my job, at the health club, etc. Started spending Thursdays through Mondays with my kids at the new house with mom. And then I'd leave on a Monday morning and live in my car. Haven't slept real well over these past 7 months or however long it's been. I keep saying, I just rotate the numbers. I don't really know anymore. Had this Honda Odyssey that I bought right when the divorce happened. I went into like hyper debt. hyper debt in addition to my hundreds of thousands of dollars of student loan debt. I went into hyper debt to buy this van because I thought, well, I got to be able to have get my kids around when I do have, it's like the one thing I could do, and I might need somewhere to live. But the thing is, the chairs, the seating structure in these Odysseys, man, I was like, oh, I'll just sleep in the back. I'll just sleep in the tailgate. I'll pull the seats out. It's just all, to the folks at Honda, come on. Like, it's just all these metal clips in the floor of this thing that it's like great that the seats come out, but it's like, what are you going to do on the floor of this thing? It's just like all metal bars and where these seat benches clip in, whatever. So didn't sleep too well in the minivan. Ended up just sleeping in the driver's seat in parking lots and such. Months and months of this in the cold. In the Wisconsin cold. It's pretty brutal. But the truth is that I didn't really sleep very well before all this either. If you want to call it a marriage, I don't know what you want to call it. I'm not going to get into personal stuff here, but, we all, sorry to pull back the curtain a little bit here, but slept on a couch for basically 10 years, Didn't sleep too well then. I've never really had a bed, I guess, as an adult. I've never really had a bed. Don't really know what it's like. Grad school was kind of on a mattress thing. Then after grad school was the apartment, but then by that time the relationship was what it was, and sleeping on a couch. Went from a couch to a car. Also, I got some tricks for the winter. You can only get so many tenths of degrees below zero in the winter before you can't even sleep in the driver's seat for 40 minutes at a time, then restart the car and heat it up for a half hour, then turn it off and sleep again. You can only do that so much. So you got to find some tricks. I had some tricks. I had some pretty clever stuff I did to get through the winter. But I'm tired. I'm a 40-year-old man, and I'm tired. And I wake up at 3 a.m. because I'm trying to solve this riddle for my son and myself. And my son via myself. And I just can't. And, I try to have that sort of like, I'll sleep when I'm dead gumption and resolve. But the truth is that I feel like if I don't sleep soon, that's, you see what I'm saying? So the past, and then all this, until the pandemic. I've been doing this like 4 or 5 days a week, a homelessness thing, and then spending the weekends with my kids at the new house, and then the pandemic. And then ever since the pandemic, just been living at the house with my ex and my kids. And it's been fucking wonderful. Pardon me. I'm in heaven. I don't want it to end. I'm a conservative. I'm totally skeptical about this whole thing. I mean about the economic response to it, and about, like you've heard in previous shows, the numbers. I don't want it to end. You know what I mean. I have everything I want in life right now. I wake up, my kids are there. I go to sleep, my kids are there. Last night I fell asleep on the bottom bunk with my second oldest daughter. She came and crawled in bed with me after she was done playing dollhouse with her mom and her sister. And that's enough, man. That's all I want. I sleep good with my kids in my arms. So these past 2 months have been wonderful, but before that it was hell. And I got to tell you, I'm as the fog lifts of this whole thing, I'm not excited about going back to hell. You can have events come about in your life that are so intense and shake you so hard that everything just sort of becomes a blur. And I feel like I've had one of those stacked on top of another. I was up late. I have to put the kids to bed with my ex the other night, sitting in front of a fire outside. And we were talking about this, about, to the extent that we talk, give us both enough whiskey, we'll open up a little bit, and then we'll say goodnight and we'll go our separate ways. Sometimes you just, after a certain point, something can hit you so hard that you're just kind of a zombie after that. I don't know. I've never really woken up. I've never really recovered. It's 7-8 months later. To be honest, before that, it was what happened to my son 5 years ago. I've never really recovered. I never will. Haven't slept real well. In and out of my consciousness, amid all that blur of all that's transpired. From time to time, I catch this guy on TV. I'll be like passing a TV, or I'll or when with my kids on the weekend at their place. Now we have a TV. During the pandemic, we got a TV. Hadn't had one forever. Or on YouTube or whatever. You see this. I see this MyPillow guy, and I've been watching. First, he was just sort of like on the periphery of my consciousness, and then he I don't know if this is happening for you. He's working his way into my consciousness. It was very upsetting at first. It's like he's kind of hard to get out of your mind, isn't he? I gotta tell you, man, I'm a jerk, and I'm a sinner. And I'm an arrogant bastard, and I'm an intellectual snob, and all these things. And one of my particular weaknesses, or one of my, I should say, sins, I don't mean to equivocate, is that because I'm pretty preoccupied with the intellectual stuff, I get a little bit exasperated with people who don't seem to be struggling intellectually. How can I explain this, man? Within, maybe if you're on the outside of this, it's not going to make a lot of sense to you. Even if you are on the inside of this, it might not. But for Christians, there's all sorts of different views among us about the intellectual side of things. And as a person, I've kind of like progressed through a couple different ones at different stages in my life, at different stages of my growth, whatever, education. It's a big snare for Christians, because there are great intellectual riches and rewards for arduous labor within Christian thought and understanding how to sort of rethink the world now that you see this truth that is essentially spiritual in nature. It's hard to sort of like map it onto your intellectual understanding of the world, because who knows, to what extent your intellectual understanding of the world to begin with was real reliable or sound, right? There's all these different schools of thought within Christianity about different ways to understand what it is we know and believe, how to intellectualize it, I guess you should say. And so I'm kind of a snob. I'm kind of a snob about everything, but about this stuff, I get sort of like, and I know I got friends who can relate to this. If you spend a lot of time studying, it's just kind of like this with anything, right? You spend a lot of time studying something, and then you encounter places where it's being treated pretty superficially, and you get kind of like, what kind of humph? You get kind of uppity about it. You're like, well, there's more to it than that. Blah, 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 this MyPillow guy, man. I think he started seeping into my consciousness primarily because he's advertising pillows, and sleep is just not something that has been a part of my life really in the last 10 years. And, I mean, God. And especially in the past 8 months. But I gotta, sometimes I see somebody like this, and as a Christian, I'm kind of like, come on, man, don't be so corny. You're giving us a bad name. Like the guy's got the 1995 or 3 silk shirt on. It looks like he bought it at merry-go-round, and he's got the big, like the mop and the mustache. He's just straight out of, 1991. I told you I'm an asshole. All right. So don't be surprised by the asshole-ish things I say. I see this guy come on, and then I didn't really know that he had like this whole background, this whole and that I was just pillows at first. I was like, this guy's okay. He's advertising. Okay, great. MyPillow could be fine. And then then you start talking about like this meeting, this thing with Trump in response to the pandemic. Started paying a little bit more attention. Then so finally, it's like I'm learning more and more about this guy, about his pillows. Kind of maybe secretly in my mind, longing for a pillow, some sleep, and I don't know what I was watching. Like I said, I didn't really watch a lot of TV until recently, and I don't watch a lot of TV now, but got this free cable hookup with the pandemic hitting. Got a couple months of free cable, so I've been watching Tucker Carlson with my daughter, and this MyPillow guy keeps coming on. And I think I saw some infomercial the other day or some write-up or something on him, and it turns out this guy has like this testimony that he pushes along with his product. He's like, he's got a whole personal narrative. The guy was a crack addict. You know this? The guy was a crack addict. I'm not making light of this, man. I don't know what to do with my thoughts right now. Because I'm looking at my own thinking when I look at a guy like this, and I'm kind of snooty, I'm kind of uppity, I'm kind of arrogant, and because in the infomercial or whatever I was watching, he was talking. He's like, I've always believed that you could prove the existence of God mathematically, and then when you look at my own life, the chances that a crack addict, blah 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 blah, would come to, and I'm like, the intellectual side was like, you can't prove the existence of God mathematically, blah 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 blah, and I'm like, and I just had to sort of like. Listen to myself there and watch this guy with his big mustache and his 80s hair. Now I'm sort of hamming it up. I'm kind of being more asshole-ish than I actually am, just for the sake of the illustration. But dude is happy. And he was at a really low point, if I understand the story correctly. Now, I guess, this is, I could be taking the bait here. We could all find out in 5 years that Mike Lindell is still doing crack, in the back room of the MyPillow factory, I guess. I don't think he is. But I guess, I got to leave open the possibility we're all going to get like Tim Bakered here. Or Jim Baker, or whatever the guy was back when I was a kid. You know what I mean? He's happy. This guy was at a really low point. I guess he was traveling down to Mexico to get his crack or something, or he like almost died on the streets of Tijuana or something like that. I don't know, man. I don't know. And he doesn't have a real clean narrative. There's another thing that I picked up on with this guy. He doesn't have a real clean narrative where it was like, it's getting worse and worse and worse. And then he hit rock bottom and then gave his life to God. And then it got better and better and better. And now he's a millionaire. Now it wasn't really like that. The guy was doing crack after he had the successful pillow business. It's another reason I like this guy. He's a work in progress, But there's something to be said for this, isn't there? There's something to be said for that big, unapologetic, yes, okay, maybe he's hawking books. He is hawking books. But you know what, man? If I had been a crack addict who had almost OD'd 15 times or whatever it was, and now I'm not anymore, I'd probably want you to buy my book about it too, because the story would probably be pretty interesting. And it wouldn't necessarily reflect poorly on the authenticity of my character or my testimony that I was excited to share it via book. All right, so let's not be too cynical. All right. Guy turned his factory into a ventilator factory during this pandemic. It's good. Sounds like a good dude. I don't know where I'm going with this. I don't know what to do this morning. I got to figure out what I'm going to do. 6 a.m. This is about the time in the morning where after 2.5, 3 hours of staring hopelessly at a bunch of Java code and realizing that I'm a failure and I'm never going to be anything, and that my children are going to live in squalor and poverty and my son's not going to be able to provide for himself, that I get so fed up that if I don't go run 8 miles and achieve some degree of physical pain that is distracting enough to block out the emotional and spiritual and psychological pain, I'm just not going to be able to get through my day. So, Mike Lindell had crack. Well, I go run, but you got to do something. I hope you weren't hoping for an uplifting spin on all this. There really isn't. But I've just been observing my own thinking about this guy, because I know the way in the past I used to respond to like real super positive people like this guy, and because of things that I've been through in my life, some pretty big hurts, including this last one or two that I sort of chronicled here, but some others too. I've always been sort of skeptical. I've always sort of played the wall. You know what playing the wall means? I've always sort of stood with my back close to the wall so you can't get behind me. I've always sort of played the wall around people like this. The Joel Osteens of the world. And this is not a backhanded endorsement of that guy. Don't get me started. But there's something to be said for it, isn't there? I mean, isn't there? Guy was a crack addict. Seems to be doing okay now. Got to figure out what to do at 3 a.m. This is certainly not it. Got to figure out what to do at 3 a.m. And I'm running out of time in which to figure it out. And there's this little guy in my world that needs me to figure it out, because he's not going to have a lot of options about what he does when he gets up in the morning. I got so many options that I guess I don't even know what to do with myself. I don't know why I'm dwelling on this MyPillow guy. Part of me is really happy for him. Part of me wants to believe, and another part of me knows that it doesn't follow. Part of me wants to believe that there's hope. And part of me just wants a good night's sleep. See you next time.